chance to get into the stream before we like formally start. So yeah, we do already have 2 people in. It's probably not going to take.
Wait.
You realize it was going to be in the live stream, right? Okay, well, that's a great start. I think we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen of Vanderbilt and the entire YouTube world, and welcome to Terrier Talk, Season 2, Episode 29. And this is kind of the formal beginning of the spring seasons for Vanderbilt. We have track, baseball, softball, golf, lots of big sports. But the one we're going to emphasize today is tennis, both the boys and the girls. Today we have on Jackson Haydow and the lovely Miss Campbell Babin. Thank you both for coming on. So this it's kind of, I don't want to say, I guess this is an appropriate word. There's a lot of hype, I guess, going into this tennis season after the great season both teams put on last year. Girls weren't undefeated until state. Boys only had like 1 loss or something like that. 1 loss. Going into state, so both great seasons. So let's talk about who I guess is contributing to that state team, because a large reason that's the case is because of how old both teams are relatively to into high school. So let's start with Campbell, who really is making up this very successful tennis team going into the season.
Yeah, the girls team has 9 girls in it, and 6 of them are seniors.
Mm-hmm.
We have 1 junior and 2 sophomores. So yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting to have a bunch of senior girls.
Yeah, I remember for winter sports, the boys soccer team had like 10 seniors. The girls basketball team had 11 seniors. There are a lot of seniors, like people in our grade. Yeah, seniors in our grade, but anyway, and a lot of the people in our grade that get into these athletics and do a lot of it, especially for the girls. There are a lot of girls in our grade that do this sort of stuff, and it shows here. So for the boys, how is that similar for?
Well, actually, on the boys, we actually have 8 people.
Okay.
4 seniors. We have Hunter Bates, John Bovalan, Josh McCain, and me. And then we have 2 juniors, a sophomore, and actually an 8th grader.
Oh, wow.
He's really good. He's got a lot of potential.
Oh, awesome. I guess he's gonna have a really good chance to develop the season with getting to see you guys, especially with the nice group of seniors you have, getting to learn from you guys and all that experience. And so far, both teams have proven the expectations, I guess, going into the season. Neither team's lost. How have those games gone so far? Is there anything notable, anything to talk about from those games other than just a convincing victory?
Well, I mean, we don't really start facing competition until like late in the season. Mm-hmm. Not to like bash on the teams or anything, but it's it's a little slow at times because we're not playing like at our usual pace. But I mean, win's a win, I guess.
Right.
It's just like to see how long we see how well we're playing with each other and like what we need to improve on for later in the season.
That is one thing that's really nice about having a somewhat soft opening schedule.
Right.
I remember last year you guys played St. Thomas More really early in the season.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
play them next week.
Oh, okay. So it still happens, but
Yeah.
you played them. I want to say it was a season opener. I might be wrong on that last year. Am I wrong?
I don't remember.
Well, it was either way. It was really early in the season, maybe even earlier than this year. And the girls got through it. The boys didn't quite get through it.
No.
It was your only loss of the season. And having this chance to play these teams, these regional teams, not that they're bad, but they don't quite give that same level of competition before having to play these big, heavy hitters in the really important games. It's nice. It kind of reminds me of the 2 aspects of college football and how people schedule it there. Where if you have an easy schedule before your big conference games, you have it gives you less chance of losing, of course, when you're trying to wind up getting into midseason form. But also, it doesn't look as good as your resume. That doesn't matter as much in high school, but it's still nice to have that nice little softer schedule of a break. So you talked about St. Thomas More next week. You play them. But this week you have a different game. You play ESA. Is that Episcopal Acadian?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just briefly preview that game. How should that go? How good of a team are they? How is that
We
going?
actually have no idea. We've never played them before. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know any of their players. We're hoping for the best. We're gonna try to go in there confident, but
right.
we'll see how it is.
As senior, I know like from the sports I play, as a senior, that's rare.
It is. It's kind of scary. But yeah, we're confident. We have good girls and good boys playing.
As long as we play well, we should be totally fine.
Yeah. For sure.
Jackson says, Jackson, you should have dressed up more than you
Yeah.
than you did.
You said that?
Not Jackson. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Said that. I politely disagree. I think you dressed up
Thank you.
more than enough than you needed to. But obviously, no problem with that. You dressed up for the occasion, so thank you for that. So, ESA, that's interesting.
We have a new boys coach, and he was really
Okay.
big on wanting. He wanted to play them for some reason. So
I wonder if there's a history, like if
I
he
know,
knows that coach
okay.
really well.
yeah, I don't know.
I remember, again, it reminds me from something for football last year. We had a little slight story here. So we had Coach Walker. You guys remember him,
Yeah.
of course. From 8th grade, 9th grade, sophomore year, he moves to Berwick, and of course, he immediately wants to schedule favorable. I wonder if it's a similar situation here,
Yeah.
where either he has like a brother or relative there, or maybe he just moved from there. I don't know, but that's interesting, and that explains why you guys haven't played them before.
Right.
The Hambone says Jackson actually looks rather stunning, so
Wow.
nice compliment. So
What about me? My outfit.
I know.
A good outfit. Yeah, my shoes are nice.
But that's interesting. A complete, I guess, wild card going into it. I do have slight concern that like having that kind of complete unknown the week before a big game like St. Thomas More. I mean, I don't know. Are you guys in the same division as St. Thomas More?
No, not for regionals.
Okay.
We won't see them. But
Okay, but still like
the way we play our matches will rank us for our regional.
right.
Yeah, for
So
brackets.
so still huge
It
implications
matters, yeah.
going into that game. That could potentially, I don't know, just I guess a slight concern that could potentially shape, who, depending on how good ESA is going into that. You might prefer having that maybe the week after or someplace where you have relative comfort within the season. But either way, it should be a really interesting game, and I obviously wish you guys the best of luck. So that's interesting. I apologize. So finally, I said there was a lot of hype going into the season, and that there probably are pretty lofty expectations, but I don't think there is lofty expectations for the spectators as there were for the competitors yourself. We were talking a little bit beforehand, and you said that the plan is to not lose a single game throughout the season, which those are big expectations. I mean, coming off of an undefeated season before state is, I guess, cause for that kind of confidence, especially bringing back almost everybody, if not everyone, from last season. But is there a specific, like what, I guess outside of that, what are your projections? What are your, I guess, ambitions going into this season? Not even going up into state, but maybe even at state.
Oh yeah, for the girls, we definitely discussed that at the beginning of the season. We set our goals like we want to win regionals, we want to place in state, we want to do better than we did last year.
Right.
So we just have to work for it.
The boys, we're very confident about winning regionals. We have a great shot, especially since our coach said if we don't win regionals, it's not going to be pretty.
Oh,
but
no.
State, that's a different,
Right.
that's a whole different.
I know they're really two different beasts. I know,
Yeah. At state, we meet schools from up north that
Right.
will never play. Yeah, from
Right.
Monroe and stuff.
I know girls track. I experienced this last year. Yeah, part of the boys tracking, but still, saw girls track do this. They dominated everyone in their region. Dominated district, dominated parish, dominated region. Get to state, and they're good. They place fourth. They do well, but they're not really one of the top contenders.
You see
And
different
it's just a different level once you get there. So I understand that it might not, expecting state might be a bit much as opposed to, I mean, even other sports where it's not easy, like soccer or basketball or football or whatever, there's at least a very obvious, clear, I think that's another interesting difference. There's an obvious, clear, objective goal at state when you have the tournament brackets. The football, softball, soccer, baseball, basketball, most of the other sports, compared to a cross country or a track or a tennis where it's point totals and it's a little bit less obvious to see. There isn't just you win this game, you win state. It is I have to win my game and then this person has to lose, but you have to win more than them. And you might place second to a team in state while never actually meeting them one-on-one or in any doubles matches. So that's interesting. I wonder if that makes just psychologically, especially for a team. You guys are great, but the tennis program at Vanderbilt isn't like a team that wins state every single year.
No.
You know what I mean? I wonder if that kind of non-objective tournament bracket lends itself more towards the dynasties. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot easier to look at, say, our game versus U High or Vanderbilt versus St. Louis last year for soccer, for example, and say, yes, they're a big. Well, Vanderbilt's a good soccer program. But that's not my point. Say some underdog against a great, program. Say we just have to go out and beat them. But when it's more subjective, it makes it's a little bit easier for the dynasties just to expect to win every year,
Right.
and the other teams just expect to do well, but maybe not compete for a championship. So I find that interesting. But either way, I wish you guys the best of luck going into this season. I think you will do great. I hope that your plans, I guess, come to fruition. And I hope you have a great season. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, again, as they're walking out, thank you to both of them for coming on. I guess a little bit of an insight, I guess, behind the scenes for Terrier Talk this week. I had a little bit of a frantic day. I'll go ahead and say this before we really get into. Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you. I had a little bit of a frantic day before getting into this episode. Traveling back to Homa during the day, didn't actually get home till like 30 minutes ago, till like 7:30. I had an original plan for someone else who's going to have tennis on a different week, and then they had to drop, and so I had like 3 hours to travel home and figure out someone. So definitely thank you to both Campbell and Jackson, as well as I'll go ahead and shout out Josh McCain as well for helping set this up. They were very flexible in order to do this. Thank you to all of them for because when I have a chance to do an interview, I can't do it every week. I wasn't able to do it last week. But when I have a chance to do an interview, I want to be able to do it. And sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I get a little. Excuse me. Sometimes it doesn't quite come out the way it needs to, and I have to work to try to figure out some other solution. And luckily, we were able to do that this week. Again, thank you to them for being able to do that. So, moving on from tennis, obviously tennis seems to have a very promising season and had a very promising one last year. So, moving on from that to baseball. Baseball had an interesting week that I don't have. One thing is, like I said, I had a bit of an interesting day, so a lot of these, I don't have as much detail in the results for this week as I wish I did. For example, I don't know how the rest of the tournament went for baseball this week. I know on Thursday what happened. I don't know how they did on Friday and Saturday. But from what I know, it was a pretty good week for baseball. I talked about, unfortunately, the one loss from last week against Edie White, but something I didn't realize until afterwards was it was a 3-game series against Edie White. It wasn't 2. But we actually ended up winning the series. The only game I had to report on was the game that we lost. And then we won the other 2 games, including Evan Frank putting up a complete game 1-hitter against Edie White. An amazing performance, one of the best performances maybe we'll see, one of the best single-game performances maybe we'll see all season. And it's not discrediting anything towards the defense. Obviously, the defense has played very well in order to have a game like that, too. But definitely a very good start for baseball so far this season. Not quite the same. Like I think they started like 1-5 or 1-6 last year, and then got onto a hot streak. There's no waiting for that hot streak now. We've definitely caught it, at least from what I know. Then we had our home tournament. Something else I didn't realize. We had a home tournament this weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The Pat Parrott tournament, and we had a game on Thursday versus divisional rival De La Salle. A rematch from last season's round of 16 game, and a great game at that. We were down in the first game. We lost the first game. It was a best-of-3 series, and we won the other 2 consecutively, I think in the same day, in order to win the series. Now we end up falling short to U High the next week, but still, a huge playoff victory for us. So it's a rematch, and De La Salle goes into the game. I think we're like 3-2 or something like that going into this game. De La Salle goes into the game 0-5. Which is not what I was expecting. And then they played a bit like an 0-5 team. We had a great game. One of my, it's not that incredible of a moment or anything, but it was kind of interesting. I was able to make it to at least the first part of the game. One interesting moment, Gavin, our second hitter, he had two batted balls of fewer than 100 feet, so they're both infield balls, and he got on base with both of them. The first one was a fielder's choice. John Luke led off with, I think, a walk. Maybe it was a single. I think it was a single in the first inning, bottom of the first, excuse me. And Gavin hits, a short chopper, I think, short to second base. They get John Luke at second, but they can't double up Gavin on first. And Gavin gets on through a fielder's choice. He comes up his next at bat. John Luke, I think it was John Luke again, was also on base, and he lays down the bunt to get him over. I think it was the second. I might be wrong. Maybe it was the third. I think it was the third. Anyway, not really the point. Just a nice little story here. Gets the bunt and beats out the throw. It was a sacrifice bunt, but he beats it out. Now we have two runners on base, basically for free. Very, very well done bunt. Making those plays is not easy in high school, and it was a great bunt from Gavin. And of course, his speed is able to get him on base. So just a nice little story. Maybe even more impressive, however, was Eli David's beginning of the game. He starts off 2 for 2 with 3 RBIs. He ends up getting, in that first inning, with 2 outs, he bats fifth. Both Gavin and John Luke in runners in scoring position. This kind of sets the tone. So the first at-bat with a pitcher, a young pitcher, Zach Rozier, I think if I mispronounced that name, I apologize. Pitching his first at-bat, he's a bit of a younger pitcher, so that first at-bat matters a lot in those situations. Rozier throws, and it's about worst-case scenario for that at-bat. It goes 8 pitches, very big for a first at-bat. And on the 8th pitch, full count, hits it to deep left, for a home run, a solo shot. And that's really, really bad news. He's had not great starts with not great beginnings to games before, and there was fear for that sort of situation happening here. That does not happen, however. It's a great game from him. He completes, I don't know how much. I wasn't able to find the details for this game at the end, but still an interesting game from what I saw. So he completes the inning. He completes the next few innings without really much of a hitch. But bottom of the first, we're down 1-0 at this point. This is kind of, I guess, a pivotal moment of the game, the pivotal moment of the game. Like I said, runners in scoring position. We got it. Gavin and I don't remember who the other runner was from the bottom of the first inning. On third and second, 2 runners in scoring position with 2 outs. Eli, a huge at-bat for him, starting at catcher. And if he can score both these guys, that's huge. We take the lead and we get that big momentum. But if we come up short here and miss out on 2 runners in scoring position being left on base, that is big. And Eli, I think it was with 1 strike, belts it into left center, over the shortstop's head, 2 RBI double. He actually makes it to second base. And an incredible at-bat. He then comes up next time and gets another RBI. I think with bases loaded, might be wrong. Maybe that was a different at-bat. But anyway, gets another RBI, and we are rolling at this point. We end up at the end of the 4th inning up 9-2. And at that point, I was getting late and I had things I had to do that night, so I unfortunately had to leave. But from what I saw, we had it in control. I apologize if that's not what happened, but I assume it is. I don't know what happened the Friday or Saturday games. I apologize, but I assume that our momentum at least carried us to have some sort of success during those games. But the momentum, at least from earlier in the week, has still continued into next week. That will be important to continue when we have more tournaments, including this week. So, moving on to softball. Excuse me. Moving on to softball. The softball team going into the week, I did not know this, was undefeated. They were 5-0 going into the week. A huge, surprising, really, surge to begin the season for the softball team. Of the girls' sports going into this season, it was probably the sport that had the worst. I mean, not that they had a bad season last year, but had the weakest season of girls' sports last year. I think they went like 500, went out in the first round. Came short. But so going into the season with a new coach and a lot of turnover, there was a lot of worry that it wasn't going to be a great season. But those worries have been expelled so far. They were 5-0 going into this week. I think they got another win, and then they go and play HL Bourgeois. HL Bourgeois was, I think, 6-1 going into this game, and it was a really good game. HL Bourgeois unfortunately ends up winning the game. They end up winning 6-4 thanks to a big grand slam. Losing pitcher was Kaylin Dehart, but I want to go ahead and mention Kaylin. I think she's been pitching most of her games this season. I know she was last season. She's been playing very well. Obviously, they're undefeated, and I want to just shout her out. Obviously, the whole team has been playing very well, but being up on that mound obviously isn't very easy, and she's done it well so far, at least getting us to victories. I know some of the games have been high scoring, but they're still wins, which is what is important. So I think that's our only loss of the season. And even with that loss, it's a loss to a great team, obviously, and fellow one-loss HL Bourgeois. And we have had all the success we need to in order to thrive, I guess. This season is the best way to say it, and maybe we can be a big contender going into district, going into states. So I wish them the best of luck, and I'll, of course, talk about their season, their week next week. Next, basketball finished up their season this week, and that is the end of winter sports. We're formally into spring sports season. Basketball played St. Thomas More, and it went about as I would have expected, and most people would have expected. I didn't say this on the show last week, but my formal score prediction was 74-36, and I was very close to that prediction. The final score being 82-38. So yeah, about what I thought was going to happen going into it. They scored a little bit more than I assumed. But I want to say this about St. Thomas More, because I watched the game, and they beat us, but they didn't really beat us in the exact way that I thought they would. I mean, obviously they're a great team, but more than that, they have the best depth maybe I've ever seen, or at least the most well-managed depth that I've ever seen from a basketball team. It's amazing. They have about 13 players, all play serious, legitimate minutes, and they are always having fresh legs. I mean, they have 5 guys out there. 2 minutes later, they have 5 whole new guys out there. 2 minutes later, they have a whole new slew of 5 guys with maybe 2 or 3 entirely new people. And it's always these rotations, and we're the team that's kind of the antithesis of depth. We have no depth. We have 6 or 7, players that play significant time, and we were exhausted by the end of this game. It was an onslaught in a lot of ways. We started the game down 7-0. We competed for the rest of the first quarter. We went only -1 in the next 6 minutes or so of the first quarter, but it was not. I mean, it was about exactly what we expected, but it was not very pretty. Look, I wish them the best of luck going into the rest of their playoffs. They will obviously be favorites for the number 1 seed. I wish them the best of luck doing that. So that is the end of winter sports, and we are completely moving on to the spring. So moving on to a few more sports. Track. We had a game. We had a meet this week with. It was the beginning of the season, the Catholic relays at E.D. White. I was not able to find the results of this meet, but it is also the Catholic relays at E.D. White. So if I had to guess, we probably did pretty well, especially the girls. So I assume we had some sort of success. I know what happened with some of the throwers. I'm pretty sure James scored. Congrats to him for shot put. Both Andy and so this is something interesting. Actually, I want to go ahead and mention this. Lane and Martin throw unattached for the discus and for boys discus, and if he didn't throw unattached, like if he was thrown, he would have scored. Now he didn't beat either of our guys, but he would have scored at the meet regardless. like if he was of a different school or something like that. I think the finish was, Hayden Klingman finished third, Andy finished fourth, and Landon finished fifth. So props to all three of them. Obviously, they had a great game. Maybe Andy beat out someone anyway. All three of them did very well. Congrats to all three of them for that great performance at that meet. I don't know how really anything else went. I will try to have better results in the future for these meets, but it wasn't a very big meet. Not that many schools came, but still probably had a good bit of success either way. Moving on to a few other sports. Tennis we already talked about tennis we already talked about, and finally bowling for the review. One specific thing. So bowling's had a really good season this year, just in general. But they had a big game this week. I want to say it was against Terrebonne. I might be wrong. Maybe it was Morgan City. Anyway, really interesting. It came down to it's kind of rare in bowling where it comes down to like the final two frames in bowling, and it did. They won by 2 points, which is a very slim margin of victory in bowling. But congrats to them for a big win. I don't think they're undefeated, but they've had a very good season. Both the boys and the girls the bowling teams. Congratulations to them for their great season so far. So, moving on to the preview for this week. Bowling begins their go ahead and start with bowling. Bowling begins their week. They take on Houma Christian on Monday at Creole Lanes. Golf, they have boys golf takes on Morgan City on Tuesday. And the girls take on Central Lafourche at Latour on Thursday. Best of luck to all three of those teams, including, all four, including girls and boys bowling. Good luck to all of them in their big matches and big games this week. Best of luck to them. Tennis, we already talked about ESA on Thursday. Kind of an interesting wild card of a team. We don't know how good or how not so good they will be. We'll see. Obviously, we'll give them a good fight no matter who they are. Track meets at South Lafourche on Friday. So this is interesting. It's not the beginning of the season, but it still, in a lot of ways, is a beginning of the season meet. There will probably be fewer teams at this meet than there were at the E.D. White meet. Now, at the E.D. White meet, there were only private schools that were able to come. It wasn't just Catholic schools, despite it being called the Catholic Relays, but was all private schools that were there. So you'll see some public schools, obviously, at this meet. Obviously, it's hosted by South Lafourche. It'll be a more accurate display of the teams we'll be playing throughout the season in general at meets at like Central Lafourche and Thibodaux, and of course the Terrier Relays. Excuse me. But there aren't going to be as many teams here as there are in those meets. Specifically for two reasons. One, it's still a really early season meet. It's still a meet that, we're just coming out of February. It's just the second week of March. I don't know if all of our competitors will be able to come. I don't know if we have a lot of relays and jumps and things like that ready for this meet. So that's one reason. The other thing is that South Lafourche is very far away from everybody else. It's an hour plus long trip for us. Let alone all the other teams that are even farther away that might be coming. That's another reason why this might only be like 6 or 7 teams coming to this meet. So South Lafourche, it's probably not going to be a very big meet, but obviously I wish us the best of luck going into that meet. Next we have baseball. They take on Plaquemine on Tuesday. Kind of an interesting game. Plaquemine has to travel a very long distance in order to make it to that game, but I wish them the best of luck in that game. And then they also have the Marushi, if I pronounce that correctly. If I pronounce that incorrectly, excuse me, I apologize. Tournament over the weekend. So these are both chances for us to continue the momentum we've had throughout the season so far. We hosted the last tournament, but this one I assume is going to be a road tournament in some way, which is simultaneously kind of nice and also annoying. It's not, we don't have to deal with hosting a tournament, but it's also not in our backyard, which is going to lower our own, fan, I don't want to say retention, but fan attendance, which is unfortunate. But best of luck to them, obviously, in that game on Tuesday, as well as all their games throughout the weekend at that tournament. Finally, softball has a tournament this weekend. This is kind of interesting with baseball and softball as opposed to all the other sports. The non-district season is chock full of tournaments. For baseball this week, it's the Marushi tournament. For softball this week, it's the St. Amant tournament. And it's just the same situation. There's not that much to talk about. It's just a tournament that I hope they do well at. But softball has one other big game this week, and it is the main event of the week. They take on Thibodeau on Tuesday at home. This is a big game for a few reasons, I think. But it's a big game. So it's important, first off, because it's just the fact that our softball team has been very good this season. And we're going to see if we can continue that success against a team that I think is pretty good in Thibodeau. From the limited amount of the limited number of box scores I've seen this season for softball, Thibodeau has been pretty good. I don't know their exact record, but they've been pretty successful. They have the other big thing that I find this very interesting is I think both teams have had a track record of really, really big scores in their games. We've had a powerful offense this season, winning games like 16-13, 13-12, 18-14, things like that. And I think Thibodeau has been somewhat similar in their success. So these could be fireworks. And lastly, I think I said the same thing about this game last year, about how there could be fireworks going off during this game, really high scoring, really big, really exciting games. So if there's one softball game you want to watch, if I had to guess, this would be a good one to go out there and support them. They've had a really good season so far, even if they came up short last week against HL Bourgeois. And I think this is a good chance to go out there and see just how good they have become and just how much they've improved from last season. Not that they had a bad season, but that it wasn't quite up to maybe what we want to have for softball. And this year definitely is. So go out there and hopefully support them if you can. I wish them the best of luck, of course, going into that game. And I think they will have some success. I think we have a little bit more consistent pitching than Thibodeau might have. Just depends. Depends on who's on the mound. But I wish them the best of luck. And I hope so wish them the best of luck for that game. Excuse me. So I wish everyone hope everyone does well for their exams this week, and I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. See you next week, same time, same channel. I will see you later.